Imagine. Imagine being Marvel and Disney and creating a whopping 32 new upcoming projects for the Disney Plus platform. Imagine also basically just running all of these CGI workers into the ground. We've already had quite a few shows on this platform. And then deciding to say, hey, you know what? Instead of actually coming out with great CGI for the fans for the upcoming She-Hulk series, we're going to make the CGI basically average slash below average at best. And then we're going to pin it on the fans that if you don't like the CGI work done on She-Hulk, you are just objectifying women's bodies. What's going on, everybody? Cryptix said. There's honestly quite a few things to break down here, and I'm starting to see a trend with Disney as a whole, and it is not looking too good for Marvel fans out there. So before we get into the rest of the video, don't forget to drop a like. Let's aim for 100 likes. I know you guys can do it. On this video takes 2 seconds of your time, and hey, if I come out with some type of point, then you gotta hit that like button. We shook on it through this virtual screen. Now let's just get into it. All right, so I basically introed this whole thing and the whole situation, right? We have a bunch of shows coming out on Disney Plus. We've already had quite a few shows for Marvel coming out that have already actually in fact released. We had Miss Marvel as the most recent one. We had Moon Knight. There was a bunch of other ones, Loki, and a lot of CGI work goes into those shows. Let's be honest. And if you rewind the clock back when, Disney and Marvel were really working together, and even when Marvel wasn't purchased by Disney, Marvel themselves created some great CGI work with their workers. Let's just take Iron Man, for example. The first Iron Man movie was so crisp and clean cut in terms of CGI and looked so utterly realistic, right? Now let's fast forward to the CGI coming up in this She-Hulk series, and it just looks plain bad. That's the harsh reality and the main point when it comes to the comparison of CGI. It has nothing to do with, if I don't like the She-Hulk character or if I'm just not a fan of women being superheroes. I'm not part of that, MCU BS that, some people like to put me in terms of like grouping me with those type of people, right? You can have great Marvel female characters. Like that's also a fact, right? You can create a great character that is a female in this whole realm of comic book space, right? But there are some quotes from the actual producer slash director of this show. And specifically, her name goes by Kat Corio. I hope I'm saying that right. Corio. I really don't know how to say that last name, but she brought up basically, straw man arguments about the entirety of the woman in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and if they're CGI then the fans don't like it because they're women, which is complete BS. But before we talk about the producers and directors, I really want to hit home the point that the CGI workers are being run into the ground, easily putting in 60 to 70 hours, maybe even more, on some of these shows. Now I'm going to come up with show you guys a tweet of Culture Crave basically saying a show coordinator says the VFX community, also they work with CGI, right, is depressed after Marvel announced their future slate just because of the insane amount of work it'll be on its own. They're not the appealing client they used to be. Which is, again, utterly obvious if you look at the CGI work done on Phase 1, Phase 2, and even Phase 3 for that matter. You would see the CGI was almost flawless, right? And now they're basically swamped with all of these new projects coming out, and the VFX community is not going to be able to handle it at the degree and quality that they were in the past. And for some reason, Disney and Marvel think quantity is better than quality, and that's what we're basically getting, a bunch of watered down projects when it comes to CGI, right? Now, there is another, quote that came from an article, right? And I'll try to leave the links to some of these articles in the description, but one of the series creators basically said, it's just a massive undertaking to have a show of this scale where the main character is CG. It's a very overwhelming and ginormous thing to take on, and it's terrible that a lot of artists feel rushed and feel the workload is too massive. But at the end of the day, the VFX CEOs, the CEOs of all of these companies, they're reaping the benefits. They couldn't care about the middle class or little guy. They don't really care if you work 70-hour work weeks, and you can say that for a bunch of other industries, but that's just the harsh reality of it. Now, the other, people that lose in this situation are the fans and the people that are trying to watch these shows where, their, I guess, escapism or their, area where they can just pretend not to believe, right? They're not going to actually go through that escapism because the CG is just so utterly horrible, right? So, because of all of this, the directors, producers, they're trying to come up with a new strategy. But in fact, it's not new, it's very unoriginal because Star Wars did it, and we'll get into that in a second. But the producer, Cairo or Corio, I don't know how to say that, she basically acknowledged comments surrounding the protagonist's body, saying, "There's a lot of talk about her body type. We based her on a lot of Olympian athletes, not bodybuilders," which is fine. But this next part of the quote is just utterly terrible. But I think if we'd gone the other way, we would be facing the same critique. I think it's very hard to win when you make women's bodies. Now, the other quote that she had is that we're so fixated on women's bodies, whether it's aesthetically or politically or in terms of rights or in terms of autonomy. I can't even finish this, man. This is just too much. I think what we do in this show is in touch with all of these concepts, she concluded. Now, clearly, because of these quotes, they are putting the blame now instead of on the CGI team or on the executives that are pumping out or forcing the CG community to pump out all of these projects and shows. Instead of blaming those people, the producers and directors are saying, well, I don't want to get fired. So they're now pinning the criticism on the fans and basically insinuating, well, if you don't like the CGI, you're just objectifying women because you don't want them to be bodybuilders. You guys would freak out if she was a bodybuilder who was stronger than the average guy. Or if you went to the slender route, apparently the producers and directors wouldn't win either. Incorrect, ladies and gentlemen. The directors and producers are blaming you. They are blaming me for the lack of CGI work that was done on this show. Now I'm going to show you guys two comic books and you let me know what the difference is, right? The first one, obviously bodybuilder She-Hulk style, and in fact this was one of the more recent comics that came out. It has a tribute to Chadwick Boseman at the top. So, Disney and Marvel, they're no strangers to the look of She-Hulk and the insanity that she could put out in terms of just muscular volume, right? Now let's look at another, I would say, pretty recent She-Hulk, comic book, and she's slender there. I think these comics still did pretty well for what they were. So the directors are telling you, well, if we went one way or the other, we wouldn't win anyway because all of these Marvel fans objectify women and their bodies when it comes to muscularity. I don't know. But at the end of the day, it's because of the CGI work, right? It's pretty obvious that it's due to the CGI work. I wouldn't care if She-Hulk was a bodybuilder or if She-Hulk was, a slender, strong woman in the show. But the fact of the matter is that, first off, the show's going to be completely political because the director already flat out told you that. But the other thing is, if you look at any of the TV spots, She-Hulk makes the regular Hulk look like a timid little, sissy, right? This She-Hulk character apparently can do no wrong, and based off of the TV spots, I'm specifically saying that because we don't know the story yet, but the TV spots essentially show her being a Mary Sue. She can do no wrong, she can absolutely, basically just be better than Hulk, the regular Hulk, is at every single thing. There's a TV spot of her jumping higher, slamming stuff into the ground faster, running faster, just basically doing anything better than the regular original Hulk, right? Now, this isn't something new of the directors and producers, you know, basically trying to compensate for their bad writing or their bad CGI or just their terrible execution of the character, right? Instead, they're pinning it on the fans, which is, again, not a new concept. If you guys remember, Star Wars did the exact same thing when they came out with a tweet basically saying, "We are proud to welcome Moses Ingram, yada yada. If anyone intends to make her feel in any way unwelcome, we have only one thing to say: we resist." And then they came out with a follow-up tweet saying, "There are more than 20 million sentient species in the Star Wars galaxy. Don't choose to be racist." Again, just trying to pin it on the fans for the lack of quality of content and the lack of good execution of a great female, potentially female protagonist or character. This is the issue, and this is the trend that we're seeing with Disney right now. They couldn't care less if they're putting out 10, 15, 20 projects. You are going to be forced to enjoy these projects, and if you don't, you must hate women, you must not like their bodies, they have to be, you know, utterly sexy or something like that. If you don't like Moses Ingram, you're racist. Like, it's just a constant theme that I've been seeing in the past few projects, and I think it's just utterly hilarious that, you know, these companies are trying to please the fans, but at the same time saying, if you don't enjoy this product, X product, you must be a terrible person. So I hope you all did enjoy this video. Don't forget to drop a like, subscribe if you are new to the channel, comment down below what you think about this situation, and I'll see you in the next video. I'm Cryptix. Objectifying not the woman body type, but the CGI and the lack of responsibility from the CEOs at Disney, Marvel, and the VFX CEOs and executives. And signing off.